Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make some edible flowers using modeling chocolate. I'm going to be making a rose and a cornelia for the first time. Don't forget to subscribe if you're interested in cake decorating, baking, and chocolate tutorials. I post videos every Thursday and I'm moving up in the world. Got a new mic. I hope the audio is sounding good. To get started with your flowers, you're going to, of course, need some modeling chocolate. If you don't know how to make this, I will link a video I made above on how to do that. You will need, okay, this is like a flour sponge smoother supply thing. I will link it in the description box below if you don't have one. I mean, it's like a cake decorating supply. I don't know what it's called. Flour sponge. I'll call it a flour sponge. And then also one of these tools with the ball on the end. We'll use this to smooth out the petals. I'll also link this down below if you don't know what it is or how to get it. You'll want some gloves so your chocolate doesn't get fingerprints in it. And then a piece of parchment paper or something else to just lay out your petals. So let's get started. I'm first going to get the chocolate I want. I'm using white for the rose and I'm going to make a pink cornelia. So I'll set the pink aside. We're going to start with the rose. Get my gloves on. Don't need the flour sponge quite yet, so I'll set it there. I'm going to take out a chunk of chocolate and get it prepared for the petals. To do that, I'm going to knead the chocolate so that it's workable. And I'm going to break it into smaller pieces and roll them into little balls. And those will be the petals. So depending on the size you roll the ball will be the size of the petal. So you can kind of test it like, I mean, it depends on how big you want your rose. So this kind of just depends. So if I roll a ball that size, I'll get a petal about that size. So that looks good to me. We'll go with that for now. So just roll a bunch of these little balls like that and just set them here till the next step. It's okay if they're not all exactly the same size because nature isn't perfect. Your petals don't need to all be exactly the same. So I've rolled about 20 of the little balls and I'm going to wrap my chocolate back up so it doesn't dry out. And for the next step, you're going to take one and smash it flat, pretty much as flat as you possibly can with your fingers, because the thinner it is, the more realistic. And then on your flour sponge, you're going to take your ball tool and you're going to smooth out the edges and they're going to get kind of wavy and also really thin. And you're just kind of taking it and rolling it along the edge like this to thin it out, make it look a little more realistic. So you have your petal like that. I'm just going to set it off to the side on my parchment until I'm ready to assemble the rose. And you're just going to do this with all of your little balls. I don't exactly know how many we'll need. It's different every time depending on how your rose is looking and turning out. You just kind of go until you're happy with it. So I have about 20. I'm just going to make all of them into petals and then we'll see how many I end up using. So just take the ball, squish it flat to a flat circle. Try to not let it get too warm. My hands are really warm right now, so it starts melting pretty quick. If it melts, it kind of starts getting sticky. So you want to do it quick and And then you'll just lay it on your sponge. And I kind of go in like a circle just around the edge with the ball. And oh, this one kind of folded. You don't have to push super hard. If your chocolate's nice and warm, it'll get thin pretty quick. Mine's starting to get really warm. But yeah, I mean, they can crack, they can rip. They look more natural that way anyway. So here's this one. Ah. Runaway. What's that one song about the spaghetti, the meatball rolling off the table? You know what I'm talking about? Oh, how does it go? Something about spaghetti, meatball. It rolls off the table. Gosh, I gotta look that up. I'm gonna look it up right now. Oh, it's on top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese. I lost my poor meatball when somebody sneezed. That's what that chocolate ball reminded me of because it almost rolled off the table. Haven't heard that song in probably 10 years. Ooh, these ones are satisfying when you can go around the whole thing almost without it like breaking or catching. It's very fun. Here's a bit of a different perspective, so maybe you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Smash it flat, get the edges thin. And then start a little bit inside of the edge and work your way to the edge in kind of a circular motion like this. You can go back and forth, or you can just go one way like that, whatever is easier. And there's your petal. So you have all your petals laid out, and you're just going to grab one, and you're going to roll it like this. This is the center of your rose. And then you're just going to start taking petals. I kind of like to grab the ones that are smaller for the inside and then get bigger as I go around. But you're just going to lay them like this and wrap them around each other, and then you can adjust the like edge of the petal as you want as you're making it. So as I go around, I don't layer them like completely across from each other, but I just go like across and then over, so they kind of spiral around the flower. And as you do this, the base where you're holding will get warm, and you just pinch them together. You just pinch them together on the bottom to seal them. And if the top edge is kind of stiff because the chocolate's been setting up and drying, all you need to do is like pick up a petal and say it's kind of hard. Just lay it on your hand for a second and it gets warm really quick. So basically we're gonna cover up the next seam like this. And then I kind of fan it outward so it's open like that. Then I'll just grab my next petal. So I'm kind of gonna lay it over this seam as I'm spiraling around and lay it out. Let this get a little bit warm. If the base of the rose starts getting too warm, you can set it down for a minute, or you can pop it in the fridge as you're building it. Because this is getting pretty warm, but I just kind of keep squishing it together to make sure they're all stuck nice. And as you go out and around the rose, you also want to start building them up so they're not all level because they'll start to go downward. So I'm going to put this one a little bit higher so that you can make sure to see it behind all the other ones. As you start going up, you'll see more and more of each petal. Like they look bigger, more of it is showing. Yeah, you can adjust them however you want them to look as you're building it. I really like the ones that have like little ripped edges just because I feel like that looks pretty realistic. Sometimes you see a rose with a really like ripped petal. I think it's really pretty. Okay, so my rose is starting to get kind of big. It's looking really nice. So I'll start thinking about how I want it to end. And like, since I made plenty of petals, remember I made 20, I'm going to like start picking my favorite ones that I want to make sure to use, and also ones that are big. So this is a nice big one I'm going to use for one of the last petals as I end it. And the petals are getting more and more open. So I can like fold this downward a little bit, add, like you can pinch it to add a little bit of, you know how sometimes roses are kind of like pointy? I don't know how to describe that. Like they have a little bit of a crease in the center. You can do that. You can create some waves and then like pinch it into place on the base like that. And now I'm not necessarily going to continue going around. I'm just going to look at it and see where I want another petal. So I think I want one here and then maybe over here. So I'm going to put one here. This petal's nice and like ruffled, which I like. And it's just going to show a little bit on the bottom like that. And then, let's see. This one's pretty, I think. So I'm going to let it warm up a little. And I'm going to use this side. Oh no, I don't want that one. Let's see, I'll use this side. Oh, and now that I've added those two across from each other, I think I want to add one more right here. By now my chocolate base is getting really warm, so it's kind of hard to hold. I'm going to set it down for a second and let it cool off. Depending on what you're doing with the rose, you can squish it like this to let it set up. You can put it in the fridge, like this petal's kind of struggling to stay up. You can put it in the fridge to help it set, or you can lay it down if that's how you're going to be using it. Just depends on what it's for. I actually kind of like it like this. I wonder if I can give this one a little curl, pinch it in a little bit more, and let it set up like that. Maybe I won't add another one. Kind of like how it looks. In fact, just open up the petals a little bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I used 13 petals. I don't know if my camera got a little blurry, so I want to make sure you can actually see what the rose looks like. So that's how it turned out. You can basically mold anything out of modeling chocolate. So if you have a favorite flower, you could learn how to make it. Comment down below what your favorite flower is. I don't necessarily have a favorite flower, but I do need to learn how to make a cornelia. So I'm going to attempt to do that today for the first time. Basically, I'm going to make petals similar to the rose, but I'll be arranging them a little differently to look like a cornelia. yeah, so let's see how this goes. I've got my gloves on and I've got my chocolate. I want to make the Cornelia pink, so I've got pink chocolate. To make it more realistic, I'm going to be using different shades. So I have white, light pink, and a darker pink, and I'm going to kind of roll them together and see if I can get some sort of a like gradient on some of the petals. The inner petals of the flower are darker and they get wider as they go out, at least for the reference photo I'm using, which I'll show you. So like the rose, you're just going to start by making a bunch of little balls, and then we'll make the petals. All right, so I changed my technique here a little bit. After I rolled out all the balls for the Cornelia, I squished them flat all at once, and then I went back and smoothed them out with the ball tool, and I found it much easier because they were all nice and cool, and the warmth from my fingers didn't melt them. So hopefully you can see they're staying together a lot better now when I'm smoothing them. So I would definitely suggest rolling out all your balls and then squishing all your balls flat and then smoothing them all at once. I don't know how I feel about this Cornelia. So far roses are much easier to make for me. Kind of just looks like a mess. I'm not sure about it, to be honest. And then I'm like squishing the top. I don't know, I don't like this. I might start over. Ugh. I'm calling it quits with that one. I'm gonna start over. This time I'm gonna do this and mold all three colors together. Because I don't know if I necessarily like the plain ones. So I'm gonna go like this and kind of make all of the petals have all three colors. And then maybe along the outside I'll do just the light pink and white. This is my new plan. Let's smooth out our petals for round 2, and then we'll try building another Cornelia. So the petals this time around are a little more tricolor, all blended together. Okay, here we go for Cornelia round 2. Let's start with a little bit of a darker petal for the middle. I'm gonna let these warm up on my hand. I'm starting with the smaller ones. I'm going to try the same cluster in the middle that I did before. I'm just going to try to make sure I have a better base. So I'm still just kind of folding them together. Making sure they're nice and warm so that they don't crack and I can squeeze them together at the base. Okay. I have plenty of a base this time to make sure all the petals are nice and secure together. Let these warm up. Before, with my first one, I think the petals weren't warm enough and they weren't sticking, and then they were cracking and then they were like falling off. So then I was like squishing them on, but they weren't staying. So I'm gonna try to avoid that this time by making sure they're warm so that they fully stick to the base. And then they won't be as likely to fall off. But I'm still gonna do the fold technique. This might end up looking like a carnation. That's okay. Okay, I've got kind of like the folded center done. I'm going to just start layering them out. I'm gonna squish my base so it's a little bit stronger. Now I'm going to just start using the light pink and white ones as it goes out to the edge. Let's see, I want some bigger petals. How do you guys think this is turning out? I'm starting to build it just like laying flat because it's easier to get the petals on. And because my Cornelia on my cake is going to be laying flat, then I can just use the countertop to help me build it. And that seems to be working better. I think I'm just going to add a few more petals and call it a day. This Cornelia, I don't know, what do you guys think? It might not look like a Cornelia, but maybe it's pretty anyway. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about this Cornelia. Okay, one final big petal in the back. Squish that in. All right, I am going to call that Cornelia finished. This is how it looks like in the back at this point. I've squished the base like that. It's about to fall off again. Okay. So here's how our chocolate rose and kind of Cornelia turned out. We could just call it a made-up flower, but that's at least how you make a chocolate rose and how you can make up your own flower based upon what you want to make. It's at least fun to play around and see what you can come up with. Well, I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you. If it was, please give it a thumbs up down below. Please comment with any questions or suggestions that you have for me down below. Subscribe for more videos from me. If you'd like to learn something else that's sweet, click these thumbnails. And I hope you all have a great week. I'll see you next Thursday. Bye.